Today we will deal, as far as time permits, with the dynamics of meditation. First, it should be a rule to have fixed hours for meditation. If, whether in our study or spiritual exercises like prayer, contemplation, meditation, we keep fixed timings, and also wherever possible a fixed place, that creates a certain magnetic field in terms of space, in terms of time. It is not possible for everybody to have the same place, but it should be possible to set apart the same time, because there is a cycle of time, a cycle of minutes, cycle of hours, cycle of days, cycle of months, cycle of years. So each day after 24 hours, when the moment fixed for your meditation arrives and you are there, there is a helpful presence that waits for you, and you feel, sucked in some kind of movement at that time. So it is best to have a regular hour for meditation. And what are these hours? Spiritually, it is considered that 1.5 hours preceding sunrise, 1.5 hours after sunset, they are the most favorable, because at dawn the energies in nature are not yet awake, not yet gone into action. So everything is tranquil, helpful for a retreat into yourself. Similarly, in the evening after sunset, energies in nature start becoming dormant, and that's again a time for self-gathering. This is called the hour of God, 1.5 hours in the morning. Now, I won't put it in terms of time, because sunrise is at different hours in different parts of the country, but the principle is this. Second, how long to meditate? It is wise not to meditate for more than about half an hour at a time. The more you meditate, the more you get into a kind of static poise, where some kind of inertia, some kind of a stationary stagnation comes, and you just have the mental satisfaction of having meditated for 1 hour and 2 hours, but no change takes place inside. So half an hour is a reasonable period at a time when you can be awake, vigilant, and follow the movement of meditation. Afterwards, some kind of sleep takes place, and you don't know what happens. It may be good for certain types of meditation which believe in lapse into the spirit. But for those of us who seek to change our nature, to go further, advance in evolution, for that what is called active meditation is necessary.
Pandit, could you speak a little louder, please?
I think I will.
Maybe Claude, come up here.
The subject is such that I can't talk too loud. If there is a mic, it is different. There are subjects on which I can talk to 1,000 people, like politics and economics. But a subject like meditation, it is different. There is a chair here. The chair could be brought.
You can bring his chair. You can bring the chair.
You can bring your chair, sir.
Where's the chair? You want to sit in the chair? No.
You come and sit down here.
Okay.
In meditation, there is what is called a passive meditation and an active meditation. Passive meditations are those sessions when you just sit quiet and observe whatever happens. Active meditation, dynamic meditation, is that type where you actively follow the movement of your mind, the movement of your consciousness, adjust yourself to the various corners that the conscious movement takes. Self-adaptation, self-adjustment, opening in different areas. That is, it is called an active meditation. So when you sit for meditation, you have to fix for yourself a period, say about half an hour. But if at times it continues in spite of yourself, you have to allow it and not break it. It's not an absolute rule. The regularity, duration, it is better to have more periods of meditation. Say 2 or 3 times a day, morning, sometime in the noon and sometime in the evening, or evening and at bedtime. If at bedtime you can meditate in your bed for about 15 minutes, not when you are tired. It is a wrong principle to go to bed when you are tired. When you are tired, you have to relax. You have to do something that amuses you, relaxes you. Take some kind of hot milk or cocoa or whatever, not coffee certainly, it stimulates, but something that soothes the nerves. And then when you feel a little fresh, sit into meditation and slide into sleep, entrusting yourself to the higher power, to the divine, saying, be with me. And if you consciously feel that and slide into sleep, sleep will come, but sleep will be on the surface. Inside, the movement of meditation continues, and when you wake up in the morning, you will remember where you started. That continuity of consciousness starts forming, and you become conscious of your dreams. Second important thing is, when you wake up, don't move from the bed, from that position. For at least half a minute, just stay put. Eyes may be open, but don't move. Otherwise, there is a jerk. Many of us feel a kind of jerk when we abruptly get up, either in the legs or in the knees or somewhere. That is because the transition is not allowed to be smooth. This is the way of converting sleep into a kind of meditation. And mornings, if you get up and meditate, don't sleep after that meditation, because whatever progress you make during the meditation, when you go to sleep, you lapse into subconscious, and all that is absorbed in the subconscious layers. One has to be active after meditation. And from the point of view of spiritual life, more than meditation, it is the attitude of meditation, the poise of meditation, that has to be prolonged even after you get up. Meditation can't be an active factor in life unless it is prolonged during non-meditational hours and made a kind of background to day-to-day life. Otherwise, many people who meditate deep and all that, they become very irritable When they come out of that peace and silence, and when all the problems of life and contacts of people are thrown upon them, they get very irritable. Worse than ordinary normal people who have normal avocations in life. Meditations are not an end in themselves. They are techniques, they are processes of attunement. And the fulfillment of meditation takes place when there is a kind of meditation all the 24 hours. That is when we say meditation becomes natural. You don't have a stage arrives when you don't have to sit and meditate. Whatever you do, wherever you go, there is something always, in that poise of meditation. Some subjective corner is there where you are gathered in yourself. Now, coming to the practice of meditation, there are in the human being 3 or 4 centers where one concentrates to begin with. There is, as I mentioned, a heart center, not the physical heart. Physical heart is here, but in the cardiac center, behind the cardiac center of the chest, we have to go. No doubt, the divine is everywhere, God is everywhere, and it should be possible to feel Him wherever we want. But it is easier and more concentrated within our heart. He is there pervading everything. But within the heart center, there is a concentration. And that concentration of divine consciousness he doesn't.
Stopped. Okay.
There is a concentrated consciousness which is the nucleus of a soul. In the beginning, many of us, we don't have a ready-made soul. There is a concentration of consciousness, what is called the soul essence. That soul essence gradually develops by drawing experience from life, from birth to birth, and slowly it becomes an entity. And in the higher stages of evolution, that entity becomes into a person. Till then we say he has no soul. It does not mean there is not that spark, but there is not the soul person, the soul personality. And that divine person, the divine link with the Supreme is there as our soul. The soul is the frontal portion of the self. There is a self behind everything, but a projection of it in evolution, growing from stage to stage, that is called the soul. Now the location of that is in the center of the chest, and all mystic literature, occult tradition describes it as a kind of cave. In the Upanishads, in the Vedas, we call it the cave of the heart. There is a passage leading, and as it goes it becomes narrower and narrower, and at a certain stage it is as if it is dark. Dark in this sense that you lose consciousness of everything else. Existence seems to be not there at all, and then as you go deeper still, you are sucked in. After a certain stage you are sucked in, and there you begin to feel, as you enter nearer and nearer the level of the self, the soul, the divine center, a kind of happiness, a kind of peace. And the purpose of meditation in the heart is to cut through the various levels of ignorance, what they call Maya, veils, and go step by step. Now, as I said, we can conceive of it in the form of a cave. An earlier conception and imagery is one of a well. You go deeper and deeper. Whether to utilize the breath as a rope is a way, but you don't need to do that if by willpower you can exert yourself and withdraw step by step. It is called the well of honey in the Vedas. That is, there is a sweetness oozing from it. And when that sweetness of the soul touches you, everything becomes honey. People around you, circumstances, the greatest difficulties, they all change their complexion. And everything becomes an occasion for the experience of sweetness, the beginning of delight, the bliss of things. Underlying all creation, there is a bliss. If we miss that bliss in life, it is because we have lost the art of living. That is a question to which I have referred the other day. Now, coming to the main discussion, as you go inside, you may feel it as sweetness, or you may feel as a solemn presence. You don't see anything, but you are aware that there is something, a helpful, supervising, a motherly presence welcoming you. Or it may be a kind of peace, an immutable peace. Or you may see the figure of the person, or a figure which represents the divine for you. Or you may see yourself in a brilliant, shining image. Various possibilities are there. But this is called meditation in the heart. But you have to conceive before you beginning that deep inside you there is the temple of God. And He is there. You have to always call. In the beginning, you call it out and start going inside. It takes time. And before you sit for meditation, you leave outside all your cares and anxieties. That is one method. It is called the heart center. There is another center here between the eyebrows. It is the center of vision and will. Many advise concentration at this center, the center of will and vision. Either you have an image of a flame, or any flower, or anything as a physical support, or a thought, and you concentrate there. After some time, the whole consciousness gathers here, and a new vision develops, which sees across the physical range. This is what is called the third eye. There is no such thing as an eye like this here, but it is the power of vision, subtle vision, that opens. And you get experiences. You begin to see things which can happen maybe 10 years later or 10 days later. And you enter into a subtler world of vision and will. There is another center, and that is in the head, or preferably above the head or behind the head. And this is a most liberating meditation. That is, in creation, above every form, there is a belt above where there is an overseeing presence, what we call the oversoul. And every move, whether you are conscious of it or not, there is a consciousness always pursuing you, watching over you. And that is a consciousness of observation, of silence, and of peace. When we meditate in the head or behind the head, we have to conceive of this zone of silence, zone of peace, which is there, and just allow ourselves to relax into its folds. Everything begins with imagination. Imagination is a power given by God to create things, to make things real which are not real at this moment. But imagination, whatever you imagine, is there somewhere. You cannot imagine anything unless it exists somewhere in this universe. Imagination is a power to evoke that reality in your environment, and one day, depending upon the strength of your imagination, you create it. Now, before meditation there, you have to imagine, conceive of that belt of silence, belt of peace, and withdraw behind the head or stand above the head and just be silent. Slowly, the waves of silence, the waves of peace come over, and you feel a kind of dew-like feeling, vibrations entering into you. If there is an obstruction at that time in your head or in anywhere, you will feel a kind of strain, a kind of headache, you call it, a kind of heaviness. But it is just an initial resistance in the physical to something above that seeks to enter. There is always a divine power, a divine consciousness, a divine force waiting for men to wake up, and wherever it gets an opportunity, only if you call it, it comes, and you feel the gentle pressure. You have to allow it. If there is tension, if there is headache, wait, relax, don't strain there. Where you get relaxed, things work out. There are other signs of resistance. At times when there is this kind of flow, you may feel itchy. It is in the physical, there is some resistance. Don't make too much of it. You have to just ignore these things and take them in the stride. At times the resistance is so much. You feel a headache. I have taken so many aspirins and seen that it doesn't remove that headache. And then what you have to do is say, take a brisk walk, engage yourself in some manual work. There is great circulation of energies and things adjust themselves. It is not a physical headache. Now these are some of the points in the practice of meditation. Meditation in the heart, meditation in the eyebrows, meditation in or above the head. Each one has to decide by practice what type is natural to that person. Where you find it natural, it is nature's indication that you are ready at that point. But nobody in this type of meditation meditates only at one center for all time, all the life round. After a while, the center of concentration shifts by itself to that part of nature which is now ready, which is then ready, and which needs to be taken up. So the power of concentration, the power of meditation and adjustment is directed to different centers in the body. But the best thing is to start here, or for those who are mentally developed, intellectual types and all that, they find it more easy to do in the head or overhead. These are the 2 or 3 techniques of meditation. But the purpose is to make that center a channel for attunement with a higher or a deeper consciousness. In meditational experience, there are 2 realms. One is the journey inward. You go in and come to a point where you come to the self. There you feel one with all, because the self of all is the same. You are linked there with the transcendent, with the universal, and you function from that center. It is at that time that you can there takes place what is called a reversal of consciousness. Instead of living from outside to inside, you begin to live from inside to outside. The scale of values changes. The body becomes small and the soul becomes big. You feel an experience that the soul carries the body, that you carry the world in yourself. There is another realm, and that is you go upwards. You go upwards. It is an endless stairs of consciousness, and you scale the various levels of being above the mind, and you contact the spiritual consciousness above the mind. Normally, one is guided according to the destiny that is in store for each. But for a holistic spiritual approach, for a total change from the human to the divine, all the centers have to be worked upon. There has to be an inward movement, there has to be an upward movement. But an inward movement is safer because as you go inside, there is an automatic purification, and the pretensions of the ego, the misleadings of the ego are put behind. Otherwise, if we try to expand our consciousness without first hitting the true center, touching the soul, one is likely to expand on the basis of the ego and honestly believe that what is good for one is good for everybody, and one tries to impose oneself on everybody. That is an egoistic self-assertion, a self-domination on the basis of ego. The most notorious examples of which we have seen in the lives of Hitler, Stalin and such. They honestly believed themselves that they are doing good to the world, expanding and putting their image. But if one has touched the psychic level, the soul level, this danger is not there. One expands but doesn't dominate. One feels, one pervades but doesn't impose. Now these are the techniques, but whichever the technique, the first difficulty we come across when we close our eyes is the invasion of thoughts. First few minutes everything is fine, and then thoughts, irrelevant thoughts, thoughts that have nothing to do with what we have about, they all come in torrents. And many people complain that we normally don't have so many thoughts. It is only when we sit for meditation that we have this invasion of thoughts. Why is it so? Actually it is not so. The atmosphere around us is always full of thoughts, and each mind, being a fragment of the universal mind, is a kind of a station. So it is a kind of a open market where thoughts come from all sides, and we think they are our thoughts. 90% of the thoughts that we have are not our own. Either we absorb the thoughts of others, or something that we have read, something that we have seen, they take thought forms, and they are always there. Only we are normally so occupied with other things that we have no time to think of these or cognize these. But when we sit quietly, we suddenly become aware of the existence of this flow and furious circulation of thoughts. And there are many ways of dealing with this problem. First one is to let the thoughts flow. Don't interfere with the thoughts, but just watch. But watch without participation in the thoughts. Don't run away with the thoughts. Allow the thought flow to take place. After the initial rush, thoughts will begin to show many corners in yourself which are to be cleaned, many things you have to do, many things which I have never imagined. Just observe, and when you take the poise of a spectator, observer, slowly the speed lessens, and ultimately the flow comes to a standstill, and you have a still mind. Takes time. Or there is another method, and that is to treat each thought as an intruder, as an outsider, and each time a thought comes, block the way, keep it out. It is a laborious and a strenuous process, but when you do it successfully, you create a vacant mind. A vacant mind where there is nothing. It is like a clean slate on which the divine hand can write anything. The third way, and which I have found the most practical, is to ignore the thoughts. Thoughts come, all right, leave them to the surface mind. If I am that interested in the divine, if I am that interested in the object of my meditation, there is a natural concentration. When we love, for instance, the object of our love occupies our attention irrespective of 1,000 distractions. So, the basis of concentration is interest. If our interest is keen, then the bulk of the mind, the main part of the mind, is attentive, busy with the object of meditation. Only the surface mind is left to deal with the flow of thoughts. And the flow does not disturb your main meditation. Just as when I am talking and you are listening, whatever noises we hear, the birds chirping or the wind blowing, we take cognizance that something is there, but it doesn't disturb our main concentration or meditation or study. Similarly, there is a way in which to leave the thoughts to themselves. Don't fight with the thoughts, don't bother with them. The surface mind deals with them. Now, the advantage of this is, this leads to what is called in time to a bifurcation of consciousness. One mechanical part of consciousness deals with routine things, but one part, which is basic, holds itself aloof, observes, watches, and guides. So in day-to-day life, we develop an automatic poise by which the mechanical, the surface part of our consciousness handles the situations as they arise. But there is always a part which is tuned in elsewhere, which is differently oriented, and that leads to a gradual liberation from nature. This is the most practical and useful way, without straining, without being aggressively repelling thoughts, fighting with the thoughts, and losing one's energy. This is a tactic, this is a strategy which can be prolonged in life. And as I said, that attitude of benevolence, of humility, of peace, which we have in meditation, must be prolonged after we get up from meditation. More and more. When we lose the link, suspend for a second or a minute whatever work you are doing and mentally recall the meditational state. So meditation becomes fused with the moment of life. This is what I have to say on the subject of meditation in spiritual life. After having said this, I would say that there are some natures who are too dynamic, too outgoing. For them, meditation becomes a strain. And meditation shall not be imposed on such people. They should be taught and encouraged to learn, to consecrate their energies of work without ego motive, pouring their energies to the divine and working. In that very process of consecration, making sacred, sacrifice, the consciousness gets processed and work becomes an active meditation. So, meditation is a process that is normally used, but is need not be used in every case. The point is to tune our consciousness to a higher or a deeper consciousness that is divine or progressively divine, and whatever means you use, maybe love, devotion, prayer or work or meditation, whichever means is natural to one, that must be started with. So now I think I can invite questions. Yeah.
Television, radio, and the written word, is that the prevailing reign of those of the thoughts of all other people against the individual?
Yeah, it can be. There is a barrage of thoughts and suggestions through televisions and things like that, More harmful than radio is the television, because it makes even a visual impact and it lasts longer than the auditory impact. They let loose so many ideas, so many thoughts. But I suppose we have to take it. We can't run away from these things. We have to mentally erect a barrier. Let them skim on the surface. But it is true.
Do you feel before the invention of these things that humanity had just as much a problem fighting off thoughts of the individual, had just as much?
No. Humanity has more problems now. After the institution of propaganda started, humanity has multiplied its problems on that scale. Propaganda, you can propagate, but propaganda is different. You go around, you drive, how many placards and how many posters, and each one, if you read or even bypass, they leave a certain impression. But it is a sign of luxuriance, abundant vitality. It is bound to be there. So also more techniques have been developed to control thoughts, to keep out thoughts. We are in a more fortunate position than our ancestors. Things have grown, consciousness has grown. Naturally the good side and the bad side.
You feel that the group consciousness has grown?
Group consciousness I don't think has grown much. It is the individual consciousness that has grown. Now a stage has come when the group consciousness has to be accelerated. Yes?
You spoke about the center above the head or slightly behind.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it may shift from one place to the other, or that it's always...
Yes, it is not a geographical location. It is just for the sake of understanding, We shouldn't try exact position. It shifts.
I mean, in the same individual it may shift. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Is it an actual shift? Or
Yeah,
is it
natural
your
shift.
mind?
Natural shift. Only here it is generally fixed. You have to force yourself to keep the attention here. But here, for instance, it may be a little this side, it may be a little that side, it adjusts itself. So here also, it may be a little this side, it may be a little that side. It depends upon which side is more developed, that sort of thing. We have to allow it to nature.
That is something like H.P. Blavatsky said, and we said, don't go stick to the what you say,
Yes.
but what I mean.
Yes. Yes. She said, I think, that don't follow what I say, but follow in the direction that I point. I thought there is a great wisdom in it. Whatever they have said, these great masters, whatever they have written, they are all helpful indications to us. But what is important is to follow the way, not repeat what has been done before. She says that. There are 3 sentences, I just forget it. It's remarkable. Don't repeat what I have done. Don't follow what I say. But move in the direction which I point. It requires great spiritual courage to say that.
Change is taking place in the meantime.
Yes. Yes.
What about the use of a mantra?
Yes. The use of sounds is a help to keep the mind centered. For many, concentration on ideas, themes is not enough. They need a material and a physical support, and for that some sound is used. And if it is a sound with a significance like a mantra, then that emanates its own power, and as you repeat it, it creates vibrations and keeps you within that circle. The mind does not wander. So after a while, if you do it intonation correctly, the physical or the mental repetition stops, but the being takes up the repetition and it goes on repeating itself, and it takes you from subtle to subtler states. So it should be a mantra which has power. There are 2 or 3 kinds of mantras. There are what are called self-charged mantras, which you can take up directly and with faith and love repeat. There are mantras which need to be energized and communicated by a teacher. A teacher is not necessarily a guru. One who has practiced that and who is friendly with that mantra. Through him you must receive it. Then it becomes an active, alive entity. If you just see a glossary or an index and then change, that won't work. But there are mantras like Om, for instance. They are what are called Siddha mantras, that is perfected mantras. Millions and millions have repeated it down the centuries and they have acquired a power of their own. So anybody can do it. The word peace, for instance, in any language. In Sanskrit we say Shanti, in French they say paix, in English we say peace. Now that concept itself is so powerful that if you just go on repeating the word peace, 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 the flow of peace starts. There are some such mantras, syllables, which are powerful. So many people need to use either a sound like this or a form, form of a god, of something beautiful. All that one must feel at home and pleasant. Meditation shall not be done as a discipline. Japa shall not be done as a discipline. They should be done with love, something desirable, something one likes to do. Then they yield their fruit very quickly. Yes?
About the use of a mantra, what about repeating it strictly mentally and instead of also orally? If you say you don't have the place to repeat it orally without bothering other people and this sort of thing.
There are 3 stages in repeating a mantra. The grossest form is vocal. You do it in physical sound. It is called the lowest stage. A little higher and more effective is where your lips move but no sound comes out. The 3rd stage is where even the lips don't move but only in the mind it goes on. This highest stage is where even the mind doesn't have to repeat it, but the being takes it up. And Sri Aurobindo says that each time you repeat, it should rise on the crest of a wave of emotion from the heart. Otherwise it becomes mechanical. People say a million times, 1 crore of times. It has no meaning. A japa has value as long as it is a living japa. The whole of your being dwells upon it, enjoys doing it, offers itself in that. So a stage comes when mantra is no more a means for you to achieve something, but it becomes a deity by itself. And in the tantras, a mantra is regarded as the sound body of a deity. Just as a figure, a triangle, circle, they are called linear representations, linear bodies of the deity, diagrammatic bodies of the deity. A mantra is a sound body of a deity.
I'm torn between using meditation for providing peace or just to be peaceful as compared to quest or evolvement or search for increased spirituality, as you comment.